Michelle?
I'm doing. How about you?
All right.
So who, Diane, who's doing,
If that's the only thing we gotta talk about, let's get it in and out. What do you got now? You think so? All right, that's all I want. I wanna know about you guys.
good evening. Welcome to the Township of Union Board of Education regular meeting, September 20th, 2022. Ms. Capiello, could you please do roll call?
Yes. Mrs. Bryn Swanson. Present. Dr. Francis.
Present.
Ms. McKenzie.
Here.
Mrs. Vanisi.
Here.
Mr. O'Shea.
Here.
Mrs. Regis Darby. Here. Ms. Santana. Mrs. Scott Hayden.
Present.
Mrs. Williams.
Okay, at this time, Ms. Scott Hayden, could you lead us in the flag salute?
Please stand.
Mrs. Kuhn, could you please read the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, good evening. Open Publics Meeting Act notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Union Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof published in the Star Ledger and Union County Local Services, posted in the administrative building of 2369 Morris Avenue, Union, New Jersey, filed with the Township Clerk, and mailed to all persons, if any, who had requested said notice. During the course of the board meeting, the Board of Education offers members of the public an opportunity to address issues regarding the Union Township Public Schools. The board reminds those individuals to identify themselves by name and address. First public comment period is for items on the agenda. The second public comment period is on any issue. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes respectfully. Issues raised by the members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board. All comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate. The board asks all members of the public to be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Comments regarding students and employees of the board will not be responded to by the board. Madam Vice President.
Thank you. Ms. Scott Hayden, could you please read our mission statement?
The mission of the Township of Union Public Schools is to build on the foundations of honesty, excellence, integrity, strong family, and community partnerships. We promote a supportive learning environment where every student is challenged, inspired, empowered, and respected as diverse learners. Through cultivation of students' intellectual curiosity, skills, and knowledge, our students can achieve academically and socially and contribute as responsible and productive citizens of our global community.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll take comments from the public on resolutions that we'll be voting on this evening. Just a reminder, if you could state your name and address and adhere to the 3-minute time. No comments? Okay. Make a motion to approve our minutes for July 19th, regular meeting, executive session 1 and executive session 2.
Second.
Second.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. McKenzie, seconded by Ms. Brent Watson. Roll call?
Mrs. Brins Watson,
Yes.
Dr. Francis,
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie,
Yes.
Mrs. Benisi,
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea,
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby, Mrs. Scott Heeden.
Okay, we have quite a list of communications that will be voted on in our personnel, leaves, resignations, retirements, so for our personnel portion of the meeting, we'll be voting on theirs. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to, sorry about that. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Taylor to do his superintendent's report.
That's good timing. That was one button. I'm gonna grab the handheld mic. Just give me 1 sec. So I'd like to spend a few minutes providing everyone in the room and watching an update on how the first 2 weeks have gone, and then we're going to fast forward to how things are playing out regarding our strategic plan. So first of all, big shout out, if I haven't already given it a few times, to the high school for some great press it got in the Star Ledger, front page of the Star Ledger, and on the main page of NJ.com. We were featured along with a middle school somewhere else in the state. Ms. Bozzard is seen in one of the pictures I clipped out of NJ.com with working with a student. The photographer from the Ledger spent, I'd say, first half of the day with us, asked questions, and so we were very proud of that. It was definitely a highlight for the first day. Regarding the high school, we now have an extended day program, what used to be called the Sundown program, in motion. We have 4 students registered in EDP currently who are following a schedule just about like what you see on the screen, which in a nutshell has those students who are in EDP for a period of time taking their core classes that they need to continue on their path towards graduation, receiving therapy, and working with our coordinator of restorative practices, Jen Hykowski, to focus on improving interpersonal skills and recognizing what harm the student who is in EDP may have done to his, her, their peers, or adults in the school. So we currently have 4 students. As the board and the community likely recalls, the board updated its policy to memorialize how we are using EDP, and the student handbook at our high school also reflects the use of EDP to work with students, provide them intensive therapy while continuing their academic studies, who have acted out in such a way that we are not comfortable with them being in the mainstream environment for a period of time. Students don't stay in EDP forever. They stay for periods of time. And the periods of time usually match the severity of the issue. Could be 2 weeks, could be a marking period, could be a full year in some situations, but we're not looking at students spending their entire high school career in EDP. Speaking of restorative practices, we do have a coordinator of restorative practices who has an office now at the high school and a common space that she shares with other counselors, including Ms. Hall, who's here tonight, one of our student assistance counselors. The room is used to facilitate circle talks, bring kids together with adults when it's time to broker the peace. But besides the pull-out work that Ms. Hajkowski, our coordinator, is doing. She's also pushing into classes per teacher's request when something is brewing. Now, this is something we had on some level thanks to the counselors we already have in the building. But Ms. Hajkowski's whole day is just this. It's just about repairing harm done from, as a result of some action on display from a student, and also building relationships among students so that we have a stronger community of people who get along with each other and can empathize with the way other people may feel dependent on their actions. I should also add that Ms. Hajkowski has been doing a wonderful job working with Ms. Hall and other counselors, and Ms. Bozard, of course, and her team, to bring in speakers. We're going to likely see a flux of motivational speakers for our students on par with the way it was back in the pre-pandemic era. We already have a week called Wellness Week set aside, in which we'll have 3 different speakers for our kids coming to join us. One thing else I'd like to add about the high school, re-registration has been, as you all know, a quite laborious process over the last couple of months. We are getting closer and closer to identifying the remaining students who are likely not residents in our community, but are still attending our school. I'm referring to the difference between the 77 students who are currently enrolled but still haven't re-registered and the 23 students who just didn't show. We are going to give the 23 students who haven't come yet another week and a half before we take them off our rolls. And per our legal obligations, we have given all 77 students, including the 23 who haven't come to school, formal notice that they will have 21 days from the point at which they were provided the letter, which was a week and a half ago, to procure documents that prove residency. And if not, we will start the process of removing them from our rolls. So we'll see what happens after that 21-day deadline passes. And of course, I'll provide another update on the data to the board and the community when we meet in October. One thing I didn't do last year when I was coming before the board and the community in September, my first September, is share enrollment data. I think now is a good time to do that because this year has seen quite an increase in students. A total of 311 students have been added to our rolls. I do, however, want people to be mindful that of that group, we have a significant number of students, approximately 60 pre-K 3-year-olds who are now enrolled in the new sections that we added to our program. So that 311 does account for an extra some odd 60 some odd pre-K 3-year-olds who we now can provide support for, because as you see on my slide, we quadrupled the number of sections we offer our pre-K 3-year-olds. So that does account for some of that influx. But nevertheless, you're talking probably about 250 extra students this year, which is, I think, fairly significant. I also point out on the slide some pop-up points of emphasis that we should look at, including the fact that our kindergarten numbers have increased across the district by 49. That's fairly significant. What I didn't notice, or I didn't see in the trend so far, is a flux of new students from those areas in which the town is developing property with new residences. I'm expecting Livingston, Washington, and Kiwami to get the most of new kids from those areas that are being developed. Right now, we did see an uptick at Livingston. We haven't seen it so much at Washington. We haven't seen it so much at Kiwami. And I can't explain the rise in numbers at Connecticut Farms. That just might be an anomaly. It's one of those years in which we had a number of students in that neighborhood register. But these are the highlights that account for the 311 extra students we have now. So our total enrollment currently is 7,521, again, including pre-K 3 and 4. And the reason why I keep pointing out, I keep distinguishing pre-K 3 from the rest of the student body is because we have to remember that we do not house the pre-K 3 program. When I look at numbers, I'm thinking space, personnel, and money. how can we fund the personnel, the construction it might take to update some of our school spaces to accommodate new students. Just keep in mind, our pre-K 3 kids are not in that group because they are supported off-site with our partner organizations. Another update I want to continue to share with you, as I have the last couple of months, is where we stand filling vacancies. We know that there's a national crisis of teacher shortage. I think we've done a really good job filling these vacancies. I have to give a shout out to our principals, our personnel department. I interviewed something like 74 finalists over the last couple of months, Zoom at night out of my dining room table, and sometimes after school when candidates could come meet with us. We are, we're down to 14 vacancies because I actually interviewed somebody today for a special ed position who accepted the position. But this number is going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down because as some of the educators on the board know, it's a teacher's market right now. And there are teachers playing that market. They're going to look for better pay. They're going to look for better location, what they perceive as better quality of life. Nevertheless, we are in a relatively good place, down to 14 vacancies. You can see, though, where the emphasis is. It's the hardest jobs to fill. We're not alone in this, special education and the STEM subjects. Speaking of which, I'll just add this. The board is aware that we are entering into a partnership with Kean University's STEM education program so that we can begin next year to support many more STEM student teachers from Kean as student teachers here in our high school, particularly in our high school, than prior. We're doing this intentionally because we want to try to create a pipeline from a very reputed program, the Kean STEM program, right into Union High School. We already benefited from that pipeline that our network has helped us create, thanks to Dr. Cohen in large part, our director of STEM. Dr. Cohen and I in particular, recruited 2 Kean STEM teachers, 2 math teachers, who, by the way, were in the picture that went viral of all the high school math teachers in that picture for, during open house. 2 of these teachers I'm referring to were in that picture. We pulled them out of the STEM program at Kean. We want to continue to doing that going into next year. Okay, shift gears, and this is actually, besides the HIB report, the last part of my presentation. The strategic plan is very much up and running. We are in year 1. I'd like to share a progress update with the board and the community. What you're looking at are just first year action steps for each goal. We have 4 goals. The first goal focuses on academics, and as you can see on the screen, the community stakeholders who helped develop this strategic plan identified 11 action steps. We are already in progress to implementing 5 of them. Our second goal has to do with community, and I can see a couple of people in the audience, including Mr. Arminio, who are very involved in creating the actions behind this goal. We have 1 in progress, which I'm going to talk about in a slide. The third goal focuses on equity, and as you can see from the slide, this is where we've actually, in my estimation, made the most progress so far among the 4 goals. Hey, keep in mind, the strategic plan was only implemented in May. So we were at the tail end of last year, and we're not even 2 full weeks into this school year. We've already completed 4 action steps related to the third goal, which focuses on equity. And the last goal focuses on the whole child, doing more than just fostering academic growth, honing in on mental health, social emotional well-being. We have 2 of 6 action steps in progress there. You can learn more about the strategic plan by going to the new website. If you click the About the District link and then draw down a hovered list of links, you'll see strategic plan. Click it. It's going to take you to another page. On that, you can download all the action steps and all the goals. Speaking of the progress we're making, I do want to pull out just a couple of things because I really think they're exciting. One is the dual enrollment program that the board will learn more about at its October meetings, that we are finally starting off formally with Union County College. We will be the first and currently only public high school to be working with Union County College in a dual enrollment program. There's one other school that's doing it. It's a parochial school here in the county. It will be the first public school. That dual enrollment program is going to have two strands for juniors and seniors starting this spring, pending the board's approval of the memoranda of agreements. One strand will be for any student who wishes to apply. There'll be a cap of 20. We being the counseling department, and I and Ms. Bozzard will work out how we're going to work with those students who want to jump on this opportunity. We have a feeling it's going to be more than 20. The other strand, and there's a separate memorandum of agreement for this strand, helps out those low-income students who may not be able to afford a 4-year college or university, but would like to begin the process of enrolling in a 2-year school so they can then jump ahead to a 4-year school as juniors. So again, there'll be 20 students who can apply for this program starting in the spring. Information will come out from the counseling department ASAP. We have to wait for the board to approve the memoranda of agreements, but know that in this case, the priority will be given to the low-income students. Look, my vision in a few years down the road is that we have as many Union High School students graduating with their associate's degrees, even before they get their diplomas, same year, but maybe a month ahead of them getting their diplomas out of Union County College. The last piece I want to share with you about the strategic plan is an introduction to one set of consultants with whom we've been working. Over the next 3 months, I'm going to share 3 to 5 minute videos. This is about a 5-minute video of our consultants who are helping us grow our equity work among staff and the leadership team. Now, Elizabeth Riley Williams on the right, and Tammy, I forgot her last name. Thank you. They are helping the leadership team in this endeavor. So their focus is working with the leadership team. They're going to introduce themselves in a second. I'm going to play this for you. They will be spending 2.5 hours in October, November, and then December just with the leadership team. They already started their work on June 28th this past year and were very well received. So I'm going to introduce them this month. Next month, I'm going to introduce Samantha Pugh, who's another consultant with whom we're working. And then in November, I'll introduce Dr. Edward Fergus from Rutgers, who's also working with us on equity.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Williams Riley, President and CEO of Dash Consulting. It is an honor and a pleasure to work with the Township of Union Public Schools as we work with your leadership team to have an opportunity to build individual capacity and collective capacity to embrace diversity, equity, inclusion to its fullest, and to live up to the promise of equity for schools and for the administrators, faculty, and students across the board. We are excited to work with you. I have worked with a number of school districts across the country. I've had an opportunity to work as the National Vice President of Programming for the National Conference for Community and Justice and the former President and CEO for the American Conference on Diversity here in New Jersey. Collectively, that's about 25, 27 years in the space. So I started when I was 2. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But I've been in the space of diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice work for quite some time. And I've had the opportunity to work with early childhood to AARP, and I mean that seriously. Working with family communications, yes, the folks at Mr. Rogers, and working with AARP as they work with seniors to re-enter into the school environments and volunteers, to work with young people, and to support education. Most of the work that I have done has been focused on education, training, and development, particularly through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and human relations. And I work with school districts in several different states, including New Jersey, but Florida, New York, California, and even Louisiana. I've also had the opportunity to work with colleges and universities right here in New Jersey by hosting for 10 years the statewide Diversity in Higher Education Conference, and also working with college presidents and different schools and their fraternities and sororities as they look at building more inclusion on their campuses, working with RAs, etc. I'm particularly excited about the work that we're going to do with the public schools in Union because it is one of the loves to work with administrators on school campus. Working with administrators and faculty is so important. After all, teaching is a profession that makes all other professions possible, and that's really exciting. In addition to the work that I've done in education, I've also worked with Fortune 500 companies across the globe, and primarily working in the space of diversity, equity, inclusion, coaching, and organizational development. And I'm not doing this work alone. I am happy to have with me my colleague, my sister in the work, my dear friend, Tammy Borman, and I'll let her introduce, and then we'll talk about what we do collectively.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time of day you're seeing this video. My name is Tammy Borman, and my consulting practice is called the TLB Collective. The focus of the work of my practice is dismantling racism through knowledge, dialogue, and systemic change. And as Elizabeth said, we have a lot of history together. We have worked together for more than 25 years. We both served in the role of Vice President of Programs for the organization that had been known as the National Conference for Community and Justice. And as a result, have had opportunities to work in cities and states all across the nation. My particular passion is working in educational spaces and in not-for-profit spaces. I've spent 25 years as the trustee, and vice chair of the board of Muhlenberg College in Pennsylvania, and have spent a great deal of time working with leaders at educational institutions of all types, but college, high school, elementary school, have had the privilege of doing work with the National Association of Independent Schools and the New Jersey Association of Independent Schools as well. The work that Elizabeth and I do together is focused on supporting individuals and the work that they do in teams. So we come at this work through the lens of system, not just individual behavior, but the policies, the practices, the norms, the values of the organizations where they work. And I've loved doing this work in the performing arts field, in the museum field. I've had the opportunity to work through the U.S. State Department with NGOs in western part of Africa. So I'm happy and excited to have an opportunity to join Elizabeth in the work with Union Township.
Got a little cut off. They had a 10-minute video prepared for me. I said, you got to nail that to 5 because there's no way we're going to be able to sit through 10. But look, I got a chance to meet Elizabeth in Highland Park. We did work together there because we were confronting some issues around racism. And what I found about her, and I think the leadership team would vouch for this, is that she's very reasonable, very approachable, and she's very sensitive to the current political climate. And I say that because I don't want the work we're doing, particularly with Elizabeth and Tammy, be perceived as the negative angle that we've been hearing about critical race theory and whatnot. Elizabeth and Tammy are talking to us about all kinds of bias and prejudice against those who have physical disabilities, race, ethnicity, religion, even visual impairment. So we're examining the way we approach all kinds of people of all different types. So I just want to make that clear. Finally, I just want to point out that we had no harassment, intimidation, or bullying cases since the start of school. So all the data you see that I have to report out is 0 for now. One last thing I want to say before I open up for questions from the board, there are any. I've got to give a shout out to our junior ROTC program. I hung out there for a while today. I walked in, the commander pulled me aside and he said, "You're never going to believe this. We have 122 cadets signed up." Now, to give you a bearing, first of all, that's the second biggest group of cadets that the program has seen in its history. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do to accommodate everybody. He said they're going to buy you more uniforms, so I have a feeling we're going with 122. The norm is 100. So to maintain a certain standard with the United States Army and be in the top 10% echelon, we have to have at least 100 kids in the program. So I'm really, really proud. That's one program I'm really proud of, and especially proud of it tonight. So with that, are there any questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll take my seat and give it back to you, Madam Vice President.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Okay, at this time, we have the Education Student Discipline Committee resolutions by Ms. Scott Hayden.
Good evening. Upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the Education Student Discipline Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. E1, reported at the September 13, 2022 work session, which was the Superintendent's Report of HIB for the period of August 24th through September 13th of 2022. E1A, approved at the September 13, 2022 work session, affirmed the superintendent's determination of HIB from July 20th to August 23rd, 2022. E11, superintendent's report of HIB, no incidents to report. E2, approved articulation agreement with Keene University. E3, approved guidance for virtual or remote instruction plan attestation for the 2022-23 school year.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. O'Shea. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Capiello, roll call.
Mrs. Brins Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Shea, please, Fiscal and Planning Committee resolutions.
Thank you. Upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Fiscal and Planning Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. I ask that we consider and vote on F1 through F21, with the exception that F7 has been approved by a vote by the board on the 13th of September at our workshop, and that F21 is for information purpose only.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McKenzie. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Capiello, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brins Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Okay, so operations, that brings that to me. Upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Operation Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. 01, approved security drill bus evacuation report. 02, approved at this September 13, 2022 work session. The MOA to join the ARP HCY2 consortium with Essex Regional Educational Services. 03, we have to, a discussion item, which is a letter from the Township of Union Recreation Department requesting the use of Jefferson School parking lot for the annual trunk or treat event on October 22nd, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a rain date October 23rd, 2022. Discussion, anyone?
If I'm correct, we've done this
Many years.
many years. I see no reason why we shouldn't do it again and allow them to use the parking lot.
Anyone else comment? Okay, so then can we add 03 to approve the request from the Township of Union Recreation Department?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. O'Shea,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Scott Hayden. Roll call, Ms. Capiello, please.
Mrs. Brins Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. McKenzie, this brings us to you with the personnel resolutions.
Okay. Upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Personnel Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. P1A was already approved. P1A-1 excluding numbers 22, 23, and 27 who have declined the offer from the district. P1B was already approved at work session. P1B1 approved personnel extra pay. P1C was approved during work session. P1D, personnel actions, salaries funded through grants. P2, approve substitute lists. P3, accept letters of resignation and retirement. P4, approve leaves. P5, approve INRS members for the 22-23 school year. Approve school improvement planning committee members for the 22-23 school year. Approve the crisis response team for the 22-23 school year. Approve designees for the student activities account, which will be updated for the schools listed here on the agenda. P9 was already approved at work session. P10 to approve the volunteers. P11 to approve interim vice principal for Burnett Middle School. And P12 approve student teachers and internships.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bruns Watson. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Capiello, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brins Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Hedo?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Santana, that brings us to the policy committee.
Upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the policy committee presents the following policies for the board's consideration. Policy 1 was approved at work session on September 13th. So was policy 2 to 12. The following bylaws, policies, and regulations are for final reading and adoption. Policy 13, bylaw 0163, quorum. Approved bylaw in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. Final reading. Policy 14, policy 1511, Board of Education website accessibility. Policy 15, which is policy 2415, Every Student Succeeds Act, approved 2415, in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. Policy 16 is policy 3216, dress and grooming, approved policy 3216 in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. Final reading. Policy 17 is policy 3270, professional responsibilities. Approve it in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member, and it's the final reading. Policy 4216, which is policy 18, dress and grooming. Approve policy 4216 in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. We have policy 19, which is policy 5517, school districts issued student identification cards, and it's in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. Final reading. Policy 20 is policy 0143.2, high school student representative to the Board of Education, and that's in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member, and that's the final reading. Policy 21 is policy 5513, care of school property, and that's in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. Policy 22 is in regulation 5513, care of school property, in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member. Final reading. Policy 23, which is regulation 9130, public complaints and grievances, and that's in connection with the information in the hands of each board member, and that's regulation 9130, and that is a final reading.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McKenzie. I would just ask Dr. Perez, I believe it was policy 3270 that we had tabled last week. Could you just, we tabled it so there could be further, like you look into it a little bit more, so I know you did. So if you just want to update the rest of the board.
It's our recommendation that we continue with that regulation in our policy. Hi, everyone. So it is our recommendation that we leave that regulation in our policy as is and not remove it from the policy, as it is something that teachers still engage in. When they are absent, they are still leaving plans behind, which could be inferred, or not even inferred, but it's obvious that they are working on daily lesson plans, so it would make no sense to remove such regulation from it, from our policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so no other questions?
No, I have a question.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a question for the attorney. Policy number 13, bylaw 0163, quorum. I want to know if your law firm looked over that policy. There's several changes in there. There's something mentioning of a board member being conflicted. The word will was striked out of the, was crossed out of the language and put shall. And I think that should be an issue.
Dr. Francis, where are you referring to in policy 13?
Policy 13,
No, I'm looking at, I'm asking what language you're discussing right now.
On paragraph 3, it says the Board of Education recognize there may be matters that come before the board or acts required of board members in their official capacity where the board member may have a conflict of interest, or the act by a board member would be in violation of the NJSA statute as listed. In these matters, the board members shall remove themselves. You crossed out will.
I didn't make
I mean,
these.
I'm saying you per se. I'm saying.
These revisions appear to be more stylistic than anything else. I don't see a substantive change in the whatever the new language as opposed to the old language.
Well, when you say shall, that means they don't have to, and that sets a board member up for an ethics violation. When you say will,
I'd say shall and will are both mandatory. Shall is not permissive. Shall is mandatory.
okay. All right.
Does that answer?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Okay.
I just have a comment, and this is my personal comment. Doesn't reflect any member on this board. Just want to put that out there. That policy number 18, dressing, grooming, I just feel that if someone has to wear a religious covering, for example, an hijab, and they have to ask a SBL for permission, I just think that there's something wrong with that. Also, this is 2022. I don't think that anyone, male or female, should be subjected to someone telling them that your clothing is too tight. So that's just my personal opinion.
So, I believe in the policy, religious attire is exempt. So anything that would have, so for example, the hijab, nobody has to be asked. Am I incorrect? No, if you have a religion, whether it be a yarmulke, hijab, whatever, I don't know, that is not in, that is not part of this. The tightness, I don't know, but
Correct.
but the religious, the hijab, oh God, I just said the word, yarmulkes, or any other religious affiliation of the policy is exempt.
But the policy just states that, and then I could be wrong, Mr. Buggy, you can clarify.
Yeah,
The policy states, just want to pull it up.
This is, just for clarification, this is Pol 18 on the agenda. It's the new revisions to policy 4216. I believe what Ms. Regis Darby is referring to is the wording of 2F with regards to what is inappropriate. Hats and/or head coverings are inappropriate unless approved by the principal or designee for medical or religious reasons. So I believe, Superintendent, you were going to refer to what the practice was, but the verbiage could be read to imply that it's not allowed unless permission is asked for and granted.
That's what it says.
So I believe that's what Ms. Regis Darby is referring to.
I understand. Yes, I concur. It's a practice that we would not withhold a student's right to wear a religious covering, though it's not spelled out necessarily in the policy.
So this, if that's something that the policy committee wants to look at for the future, that's something they can feel free to do.
Again, that's just my personal opinion. I think as a district that's moving forward, that we should not, no one should be subjected to ask permission to wear anything in that sense.
And just for clarification, that's not a revision that's being voted on tonight, that
Yeah.
was the way that the policy was already worded.
That's true.
I'm So, could you repeat that?
I was just saying, that's not a revision that the board is voting on tonight. It was, that's the way the policy was already worded. It's not a present revision, that's old text.
It's old text. So,
Can we amend the
do we
resolution?
amend it?
Yes, that's already there. We're not, that's not being voted. It's already there.
So, Ms. McKenzie said, can we amend it?
Can we amend the resolution to just strike that part of 2F so that it's not a situation where someone has to have permission from a principal or designee for medical or religious reasons?
Why not?
I'm sorry?
But if it's just that one sentence that
Yeah.
we're really looking at and not really changing the entire policy, I second that.
So
That we
it's
do
just
it.
a matter of amending
Well,
the,
I would just like to put on the record that there's a very big difference. Like, we're not asking people, like, there's a difference between a Yankees hat, a Yankees baseball cap, and a yarmulke, right? Let's keep it real simple here. And what we're talking about is, anything religious attire or medical, that should be without saying. It
And I-
should not need any approval. A Yankees hat,
No.
right, and
Right,
so
that's
that's
what
why
I'm
I'm saying if we amend the resolution to approve this policy and just striking out the part that refers to getting approval
For religious.
for religious or medical reasons.
got it.
Yes, so that would be to strike the text approved by the principal or designee from F. So then it would read hats and/or head coverings unless for medical or religious purposes.
Yes.
Correct.
Reasons.
Yes,
That's-
that would make
right.
sense.
Okay, so now you're the expert, so how do we do this? I know we have to vote on things.
Yeah, it's read in already.
So now we
Okay.
just vote.
So we're good?
If everyone votes.
Yeah, you have to vote.
Right, I'm saying, so we can just vote then? Okay. Any other discussion on any other policies? We're good? Okay, Ms. Capiello, roll call?
Mrs. Prince Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
I'm going to abstain from policy 17 and yes to everything else.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
I'm going to abstain from policy, 13. I'm going to, abstain from policy 16. I'm going to say no to policy 18, just on the fact that tightness is still in that policy, and everything else, yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Hayden?
Yes.
Okay. So that brings us to residency, and that's me. So upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the residency committee presents the following resolution for the board's consideration. R1, approve list of students removed from the rolls. And R2, approve to remove student 310796.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. O'Shea. Ms. Capiello?
Mrs. Prince Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana? Mrs. Scott Hayden?
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Francis, that brings us to technology.
Sure. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the technology committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. T1 is to approve list of recycled equipment in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McKenzie. Was it Ms. McKenzie? Oh, Ms. Brent Watson, you two sound alike tonight. Sorry.
You ignored me all night.
Roll call, Ms. Capiello?
Mrs. Prince Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
I'm going to abstain only for the reason I feel that we're going to have to discuss that portion regarding lists of equipment for recycling, and it's due to other situations that I have spoken with Dr. Taylor about just a couple of days ago, as far as the equipment itself, and may we have to put possibly a program for our students at the high school and middle schools as technicians to repair these. The reason I say that is I'm in charge of the recycling project over in the township. I do not have to tell you how many times I've had students from UHS, Burnett, and Kiwami, when they see certain equipment laying out and I have not picked it up to put it for storage and to be taken away, that they steal it. And when I finally caught them, they said, and this is the truth, everyone said them, we like to fix these things, and we want to fix them. And I started to ask them about whether there was programs or something in our middle and high schools, and they said no. So I had said to them, look, don't take them, but I think Dr. Taylor, we're gonna have to look at it. Maybe that is a program because there is a need for technicians in repair of all of these technical instruments that are out there. There is a need. And we do have unfortunate students that may not go to college, but yet, in my opinion, it's a technical position and career that may move on further. And if we have this type of stuff, we should look at, maybe there is a program that we could put together. We may not recycle all our stuff to the, to say the word China, because that's where it goes predominantly. But if we have something that we can do something for the children and the students, I think we should look at it. So my vote is abstention at this point.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
I'm going to abstain from that only because of the information that John just shared. I think it's worth looking into if it's going to benefit students. Our students have a vested interest in repairing that equipment, so I'm going to abstain or just say no.
Well, which one?
I'm saying no.
They could agree with me, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna vote with me.
I can't pick for you.
That's it?
Yeah,
Sorry. Mr. O'Shea, could you move for approval of bills?
Yes, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, that the board concur with the bills list in the permanent bonded register appended to these minutes and to be ordered for payment.
Second. So seconded by me, Ms. Cappiello. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brins Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, is there any unfinished business? Ms. Regis Darby?
I think last week I asked about the AP class, just wanted to get a follow-up on the reading assignments. Yeah. So the book that you referenced last week is a part of the required reading. We looked into the curriculum guide, and it's towards the bottom of page 7, top of page 8. It's one of 2 books that was listed. And as would be the case when one watches a movie or reads a book for the first time, sometimes the first time you see it, you may not catch all the details. So the teacher's explanations were that the initial read and the initial essay analysis is done over the summer. However, once the students come back to the school, they have the opportunity to have a deeper analysis of the text, which allows them to better prepare for complex text analysis in the APs.
Okay, any other unfinished business? Okay, new business. Yes, Ms. Brentwood.
Just a couple of things. I'm thankful that we have a new website. I do have a question though regarding email addresses for board members. They were left out. Was that intentional or just an oversight?
Which part of the board member site?
On the Board of Education
Correct.
website,
Yeah.
if you go to board members, it depends, I guess, on where you approach it from. There are no email addresses listed.
Oh, yes, I'm seeing that. No, that certainly wasn't intentional. But we can look into that. When we transposed the data from the last site, some things may have gotten misplaced or lost, so we'll correct that.
So don't go in here. So it
Yeah.
should be
In fact,
here
you-
as well.
Yeah, it's in the other place.
Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, if you just, no, don't go there,
With the,
just click board members.
right, the
Just click
word,
board members.
the word,
Click
Yeah.
there. See, there it
and then
is.
they pop up.
Okay, okay, so if you go here, and you go to appointments.
Ms. Brown Watson, can you actually show, can you
Yeah,
describe again?
She just saw it.
I just saw it.
She just
Oh,
saw it.
okay,
She
good.
knows-
I see where she's.
Thank you.
She knows what I'm looking at. Thank you, Mrs. Paul, I appreciate that. The other question that I had, again, looking at the website, right? I think it's important for us to maintain consistency in the information that is presented at each school. And I can see that like a couple of the schools have very robust calendars, while others have very little information. I know that there is a meeting coming up for Kiwami, but it's not on the website, so I have to go fishing for it. If I miss the email, I will know when it is. And something just to think about, perhaps, if we can, the leadership teams in all of the schools are doing so much work, right? It should be known who the principal is. So if you go to the website, you don't know who the principals are for any of the schools. I think that should be there as well.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank Mrs. Bossard and her team for a very welcoming back-to-school night. They were so warm and fantastic, all of the teachers being out there directing people. We missed a couple of people, but it was still very nice to sit in the classrooms and walk the hallways and experience what our students experience. And I have to tell you, it wasn't half as full as it would be during a regular school day. So I had a lot of sympathy for them. And I go through, it's been 4 years at the high school. And every year, I find myself going, wow, my kid has to do this. And he has to walk from this end of the building to that end of the building in this many minutes. And it's not just a clear path. It's a sea of other kids. But it was good to be there, and it was good to feel the energy. So congratulations to everybody. It was very nice to see them all back. And I'm looking forward to the other schools also.
I do want to confirm, we're going to be sure that we update the information pages for the school sites and that the calendars include more information that they already do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for alerting me to that.
Ms. Scott Hayden?
I don't really have business per se, but being that we are at the start of a new school year, I would like to just say welcome back to the staff and students. Wishing you a successful new school year. Appreciation of all educators that come into our schools every day and do their due diligence. Also to the parents and community stakeholders, we appreciate your continuous support and making sure that Union schools are leading institutions, learning institutions. We thank you for your continuous support and push to make us do what we need to do on behalf of our students. I would like to give a special shout out to Ms. Manoya, who actually reached out to me. This is a personal point of privilege, I should say, reached out to me. She was my grandson's teacher last school year at Battle Hill, and the year before that, she was my other grandson's teacher. They are special education students, have a lot of behavioral issues. She took a special interest in them. She still follows up. She was at the school today, visiting and following up to make sure that they're having a successful school year, that they're adjusting to the new middle school curriculum. So I just wanted to give a special shout out to her because other parents that I have spoken to in the community who have had Ms. Manoya teach their children also shared the same sentiment that this is just who she is. So I just wanted to make sure that I took a moment to shout her out, but also to give due diligence to all of our educators that are with us this school year, who have stuck it out with us, just to say thank you. And we are here to support you to have a successful 2022-23 school year. So thank you again.
Thank you. Any other new business?
New?
New.
Yeah. So, I report out to Kwame Middle School, and thank you, Yokasa. I didn't know that the information wasn't up there, but here I am. So I just I received an email, and I just wanted to share it out because sometimes, not every parent has access to all things or time. So they do have an open house this Thursday evening, September 22nd, at wonderful Kwame School. The program will begin at 5:30 with a short presentation from their student assistant counselor. After that, there will be a PTA meeting at 6 p.m. where you can become a PTA member. Please do. At 6:30, then they'll make the announcement to go to the children's homerooms. They'll have access to the schedules and all of that. They strongly suggest that to attend the evening without children, but if that is unavoidable, they do have people in the auditorium for them. And one thing, they did send out a prior email, and I was trying to look for it, but I couldn't find it. And it just basically gave some type of statistic that said, the more involved you are in your child's education, even if they don't want you there, because if you have children like mine, they run from me and they don't want me there, the more success that they have in life, right? Not just going necessarily into a great college, but just being more present. And sometimes we think that we really only have to be there as when they're young, changing diapers, that type of thing. But this is the time, as they're getting older, be more involved, be that ear, and be their support. And I wanted to say, just like Ms. Scott Hayden, thank you to our staff, our district, everybody. But most importantly, I think that we have great children in this district. We really do, of all colors, creeds, interests, and I wish them well this whole entire year. And if anybody has anything to say about Kwame, if you just want ears to say great things, opportunities, I am always here, and I love Kwame. I currently have an 8th grader and a 6th grader, no, a 7th and an 8th grader, no, a 7th and a 6th grader there. Sorry, a 7th and a 6th grader, yes, that's my final answer. And very excited to just be in the school district this year, thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to follow up with new business with the Serenity Garden at Hannah Caldwell. They did a beautiful job, the PTA, parents, many people from the community, from Lowe's, they came, they decorated an area. It's a sensory garden for all of our students. They did a beautiful job. Last week they had a ribbon cutting, and I was invited. It was beautiful. Thank you to all the members of the PTA and the community that are involved in that. And tonight I had to miss their open house because there's this evening, and I'm here. So, and I want to wish them all the luck. I mean, everyone in the district. It's a new year. Hopefully, we're getting off to a great start. COVID behind us, hopefully. You know, we'll keep that in our rearview mirror, hopefully, so that we all can have a better school year than we've had the last two. But just want to thank everybody for all that they do. Any other new business? Okay, so now, one thing, Mr. Arminio, I'm just going to jump in here real quick about the 5K on Sunday. I know you're going to mention that. Yeah, but I did sign up, and I love the picture they have out on I think it was in TAP, I saw it, Mr. Arminio running to the finish line. So I'll relinquish this time to you. So at this time, we have comments from the public. Just a reminder to state your name and address, and to please adhere to the 3 minutes.
David Arminio? It's on? David Arminio, Woodland Avenue, Union. I want to first thank the board for allowing the collaboration between the Board of Ed, the Township, and the Chamber of Commerce to host the 5K coming up this coming Sunday. It also helps a family. Every year, a family in Union is helped with the funds that are raised through the 5K. And you could go to the website, the Chamber of Commerce website, and read about the family that's being helped this year. The collaboration between the 3 entities is getting better and better every year. And hopefully it will continue to improve as we go forward year after year. And I have to shout out to a young lady who sang the national anthem last Friday night at the football game. Her name is Kimberly Marrera. She's a senior at Union High School, one of the best renditions of the national anthem that I've heard in a long, long time. So Kim, where if you're listening, great job. I hope you come to the next 2 home games and sing the national anthem at the next 2 home games. I think October 9th is our next home game, so hopefully all of the board members will be there cheering on the team.
Thank you.
I'm Howard Toplansky. This is Sean.
Yes.
I'm on Carlisle Place in Union. I graduated in 1960 from Union High School, which set me up for 8 years at the University of Michigan and 44 years of teaching in New Jersey public schools. I now have 2 twin 3.5-year-old grandsons who will probably be going to pre-K next year and thereafter. I just had 2 questions that have been on my mind. I know it makes the news a lot, but number 1 is, what is the policy in this district regarding, number 1, critical race theory and transgender studies in elementary school?
I was just gonna say, normally we don't respond at the meeting, but it's entirely up to Dr. Taylor.
I don't mind having Dr. Perez respond.
Don't pass it to me, I'll tell you that right now.
Look, if this is so difficult, I'll take a written response.
I'm sorry, Mr. Toplansky, can you give clarification? Referring to our curriculum or board level policy?
Yeah, I was asking what the district policy is on both of those things.
Oh, well, I can speak to that. Okay, well, regarding curriculum, Dr. Perez can elaborate. But regarding policy, we have not yet updated our policies. All we have on file are what the company that we use, Strauss Esme, has recommended to.
It's
all
off.
the schools.
Dr. Taylor, you're off. You're off.
Thank you. That does sound different. We have not updated our policies regarding transgender support.
What's the existing policy?
I would have to pull it up. It's probably several years old because we acquired it from Strauss Esme, which is the organization that provides sample policies for school districts almost throughout the entire state.
I know this is very controversial. If you want to send me a written answer, I'll be glad to take it.
Well, actually, what I would recommend you
Dr.
do.
Taylor, I'll just interject. All the board's policies are available on the website.
I was just going to suggest that.
So you can, they're all up there as well as the regulations, so you can feel free to peruse that at your leisure.
And if I have to, I'm going to give Mr. Toplansky a call because I have his cell phone number. Because Mr. Toplansky was my union president in Kenilworth when I was his superintendent. So, Mr. T, if I have to, we can reach out to each other if you need guidance. But if you go to the website, just click board. You'll see the policies there for you. All you have to do is pull it right up.
As long as Dr. Taylor is being personal, I'd just like to say that I know him as an extraordinarily dedicated educator and a remarkable scholar.
Well, in that case, I'm going to give you the transgender policy at the end of the day. I'm just going to hand it to you.
Thank you very much.
Gold leaf, yeah.
Thank you.
That's enough for now.
May I make a comment? Hi, I'm sorry. So I'm the policy chairperson, and I just want to say thank you for that question, because I love not knowing things, and I will know the answer to that question very soon.
I was in the first year of the Columbia.
Thank you. Oh, you went there the first year of the Columbia Open.
Good evening. My name is Fatimata Dukuri. I have 4 kids, and 2 has been graduate from this high school.
Hey, could you just tell us your address, please?
783 Vivian Terrace.
Thank you.
And 2 of my kids has graduated from high school and in college, and 1 have to be graduate this year from college. And I'm really grateful and happy to see the board, all the board members today. This is my first time. And my last kid just got in, and in high school, and I'm very happy about that. And I have one kid, the third one. She's a special education student. And because of her sickness, her medical issue, she have to be with a one-on-one nurse. Since the school open, they cannot find no nurse for her. She's still in school. She's home. She's asking me every day when she can go home, when she can go to school. And I've been calling with no answers. And I want to know who I can address to ask those kind of questions, what I can do to help her to go to school.
Well, what I was going to suggest is I will get your name and your address from Ms. Kuhn or Ms. Capiello, and we'll follow up promptly.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
I know, I'll yield to you if I have any time left. Hi, Jill Hall, Whitewood Road. Just two things I wanted to talk about tonight. Last week, the board in P1B set a precedent by granting a 6-period teaching stipend to a non-teaching staff member. So I'm here to very respectfully ask on behalf of CST members, school counselors, and nurses who also do not have a teaching responsibility or a teaching load per se to also be granted that $5,100 stipend as well. My second issue, not an issue, actually. Last week at the work session, I mentioned that we will be taking some initiatives towards suicide prevention. Suicide Prevention Awareness Month is September. Back to school is a little crazy, so we're kind of extending suicide prevention into October, and hopefully we'll continue to have conversations about suicide prevention as the year continues, as it is obviously something that is of great importance. We are seeing some of our kids who are struggling, and we are trying to provide them with a safe space to talk about some of the things that are really on their minds and to put the right people in front of them to prevent any tragedies from happening to our kids. So we were able to write an application through To Write Love on Her Arms, and we are going to be rolling out a program called Between the Bells. And the initiative is basically what's going on between the bells, like when the bells are ringing, like what's happening and who's talking to people and where are you and what ears are the conversations kind of falling on. And to that end, they've provided us, and I brought some for you, I'll leave them here for you, these they're like the little bracelets. Kids love these, they'll all wear them. And the yellow is the color for suicide awareness prevention, and it says, "We need you here." They've provided us with cards that have hotline numbers on it. All of our school ID badges now have the new 988 number on the back. And in addition, for parents and for our students, they've provided us with resources and safety plans in a booklet that we can make available to all of our students. We're going to have a bulletin board. It is going to be rolled out with great sensitivity because this is a topic that our students may find difficult. The school counselors are ready to go with it, and you'll be starting to see some of these things next week. So I'm going to just leave these here if anybody would like to avail themselves of them. And I will also leave the resources here, which says it's okay to ask for help, and that's one of our biggest initiatives. We're trying to remove that idea that it's not something that you should talk about, and to normalize those conversations around mental health. So I'm going to leave this here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam President. I wanted to just comment on something that Ms. Hall said, but I wanted to ask the attorney if I can. Mr. Buggy, I wanted to ask a question concerning what Ms. Hall said about
As soon as I can get my microphone to
Okay.
Dr. Francis, yes, that's correct. If it's something you want to.
It's about 6-period stipends.
Yeah, we can't talk about that.
Okay. Well, at some point in time, I think we are? Okay.
We are now.
Okay.
Hey, like I say, I got no filters.
Yeah, yes, Ms. Burns-Watson.
I do have a question as well. Ms. Hall mentioned that the new ID cards will have the number. Do we plan on replacing all the cards?
The new cards that Life Touch is giving us, Life Touch actually has it printed on the back. The ones that we are
My name is Natercia Lopes, and I live at 871 Peachtree Road. Since the pandemic started, I stopped coming, so I'm back. I'd like to say that a lot of parents that I know, and there's a petition out because of the Zoom meetings, these meetings being able to be on Zoom. There's a lot of parents that work until 6. They come home, they have to do dinner, they have to be with their kids, and they cannot attend in person. They would like still to come and be able to be a part of it. I don't understand why it was ruled out if the district is not paying nothing for it. I was reading about the Zoom, and they offered it to the school districts to be free if need be. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Also, we had 5 minutes way back when. Now it's 3 minutes that we have to talk. I do understand that everyone wants to be home and nobody wants to be here past the time that they need to. But if you don't want to be here, don't run. It's not a paid position. You could stay home and watch it from home. If you don't want to be here and work for the kids and listen to the parents, you have the option to stay home. You don't have to be here. It's my point.
Thank you.
Okay. Louisa Bias, 591 Duquesne Terrace, Union. Hi, everyone. I wanted to start off on a positive note. I went to the open house for the Union High School, and I was so happy to have a breath of fresh air. The teachers were lovely. The administration is lovely. I haven't had to call Dr. Taylor, email Dr. Taylor this year. So I just want to say that they're putting in the work, and it shows. It's only the beginning. It's only week 3. However, we have to just continue on this positivity and consistency and follow through, and we're sending a message, and the kids are getting it loud and clear through sports, through every day, through everything. Just even the arrows with the drop-off and the consistency of administration being out there and following through and making sure that we as parents act right on those lines. So it starts from the home, and we're seeing little by little. So I wanted to let you guys know that we see it. We see it, and we are happy. We're glad. There's still a lot of work to be done, curriculum-wise, vacancies. I found out at open house, not by my son, because he withheld that information from me, that there was a vacancy in his 10th grade honors English. So now this is week 3. He has no teacher. He's perfectly okay with that. I certainly am not. He needs to be prepared, and we need to fill that vacancy. So we need to work on that. But also I want to piggyback off of what Natercia said. With the Zoom option, I believe it was the Board of Education president, and she's not here today, Mary Lynn Williams, made the decision to eliminate the use of Zoom. I understand that we have it Facebook Live, we have a live stream, but that's just listening to it, not participating. We have parents that work. I literally came back from a class, fed dinner, left the kids because my husband's still not home, and I ran here to be heard. But I can do that. Other parents can't. Other parents are getting ready for their night shift. I'm not sure. But we need to be able to allow parents to participate, not just listen. We need to participate. We need to be heard, and we need to make it, wait, hold on. Shoot. We need the community to be a part of this, and we need her to reverse this decision. We need Zoom. It is free for districts because I work for a district, so it is free for districts. We need to have it. We need to have it back. We need community participation, and I'm not understanding why she took it away, and I'm demanding better.
I'll try to keep this as short as possible. My name is Rihanna Burst. I live at 320 Weaver Avenue. I graduated Union High School in 2013. So, wanted to hear that we're still discussing dress code in 2022 about religious or whatever reasons. That's a little alarming, but that's okay. I do have a question because recently my brother was involved in an incident at this school, and I recently found out about the HIB, the form. What is the actual process of that? I know I read it was 24 hours, but since I'm just getting this information, I would like to know because I feel like a lot of parents don't know these things when it comes to disciplinary actions or what they can or cannot do. And also, with community involvement, what are the options for people who, like me, I'm not a parent, my little brother goes here, I've been here. I know a lot of alumni who would like to be involved in other ways they can contribute. So I would like to know other ways. You mentioned internships, through the recreation department, community involvement. What are some other ways that we can be involved? Because I see a lot of holes and gaps, and I feel like I have some people who could fill them.
Yeah, why don't you? Seriously, right
I
now.
know, I would.
Because that's what we asked for, but we don't see it. You're seeing here as far as why we got rid of Zoom.
Okay, Dr. Taylor would like to make a comment?
Go ahead, doctor, go ahead.
I want to answer your question. First, I want to thank you for bringing it up because it's a good opportunity for us to remind the board and the community how we handle the all-important HIB process. The very first place I would encourage you to go, if you have access to the internet, is to our website. We just updated the section on HIB, and it's very thorough and very clear about the steps that you have to take. That being said, though, what I would love for you to do, if you visit the site but you still have questions, is to reach out to Mr. Benaquista. So, and getting to him is very easy. His email address is actually. Oh, okay, that's what he'll do. So, but if you go to the website, just go to that main page. You don't have to go to the school sites, and it's right there under the. Just verify. It's under the Departments and Services area. There's a whole section on anti-bullying, HIB, and it even gives you the reporting form, which you said you have?
Yes.
Okay.
But question, prior to even getting to this process, is there, before we have to go through a whole nother form, like as far as vice principals, principal, there's other questions that I want to talk about that I can't speak about here because I'm going to run out of time. But if there's a person that I could speak to about that, I would like that information as well.
Well, if they're specific and you haven't had a chance to talk to the principal yet, please do that first.
Oh, to clarify, my parents have. I haven't. Being a student here and knowing how things go, it's a little different. So that's what, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Mr. Benaquista and you should get together, and why don't you, when you're done, you step aside, he'll take your information, okay?
Okay.
Was that it?
Oh, and shout out to Miss Scott Hayden, sorry. It's nice to see you again. And also Guy Francis, good to see you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Motion, are we going into executive? Mr. Buggy, are we going into executive session?
Other than Dr. Francis' comment, did not have anything to report on any litigation.
Dr. Francis, you want to go into executive for that, or can you wait? Okay, Ms. McKenzie wants to go into executive. Yes.
I wanted to make a comment.
Okay, Ms. Santana would like to make a comment first.
So my comment is down for the 5 minutes.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, do we have a motion to go into executive session? Motion by Ms. McKenzie?
No, I motion.
Okay, and who seconded it?
Well, we're going or we're
Okay.
not going? You want
No,
to go?
Regis Darby made a motion.
Executive session, right? Yeah. Okay, Ms. Capello,
Okay,
roll call?
Board will be moving into executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications issues and any other legal and personnel issues, and action may be taken when the board returns to public session.
Mrs. Brins Watson?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea? Mrs. Regis Darby? Ms. Santana? Ms. Santana?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Hayden.
I love every minute of it.
Oh, by the way, Scott? Motion. Want to show you something. What do you think that is? 1969, 838 of us.
Wow, 800 and how many?
838 was the year. We are the largest class in Union.
That's your class?
That's my, I could point out where I am.
It's funny, it doesn't look like that many.
It doesn't, but
But
it is.
I believe you.
It is. It is.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, it doesn't look, it's so funny.
Oh, no, you want to help? When we did the graduation, good night.
Hi, Mr. O'Shea.
Goodbye.